Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be testing out a brand new 3D scanner by Creality. This thing is called the CR Scan Lizard. It says it's a kit. I'm interested to see what's in here. And they also sent us this little miniature bust to give us an ideal detailed item to scan. And I say ideal because, well, glossy surfaces can be a little tricky. So stay tuned. So it's a very nondescript, non-flashy box, and inside it is a carrying case for your new 3D scanner. It's one of those like semi-rigid cases, you know, so it's got some protective qualities to it. I'm going to assume that there is some foam inside. A whole flap. So we've got a little, let's start here. We've got a little zipper pouch. There is a little rubber Creality embroidered like cover. Maybe it's for the lens or something, we'll see. Actually, there's a couple of them, so I have no idea what that's for. And they're like very soft. They almost feel powdery, but they're not. And then this would be the scanner itself. It's really, really small. The picture on the front of the box is a little misleading in that regard. It almost looked like a DLP projector or something. So really tiny. It's got like a 5-pin connector on this end, circular connector. And it looks like it's got like at least 2 different lenses. There's 3, but this one looks a little different. So we'll have to read the literature there. And then it's got kind of your standard tripod mount on the bottom, the screw mount. So I'll place this aside. And yeah, these are not for the lens, they're for the entire unit, to keep the unit free of scratches and getting bumped around and stuff. So you know what? I'm gonna take a second and put one of these on. All right, so I've got one of the protective silicone sleeves on. Little tricky, it's a tight fit, but it's perfect fit. A little cutout for the tripod mount on the bottom. I feel less worried about damaging that now. So there's a little USB stick, and there are a series of plug adapters. So the AC adapter for this is going to have multiple input voltages and has all the different adapters for Europe and South America, etc. And so there's a turntable, which has a bunch of letters on it there, and numbers around the middle circle. And then the actual motorized turntable part, which has a USB input on the back for the motor. And this guy is obviously going to sit on there like that. The other part of the AC adapter, so for us here, I almost got the wrong one. We'll just slide on our adapter there. And yeah, this is good for input voltages of 100 to 240 volts, 50 or 60 hertz. So should work basically wherever you are. And one more little piece under here. It looks to be a screw-in piece with a hook. I'm not sure if you'd want to hang this from something, perhaps. That's going to get lost if I don't put it back in there. So put these back in. There. Okay. We got desiccant pack, garbage, Creality little certificate, QA cert, a micro USB cable probably for that guy. Because this interesting cable here, while it might be USB-A on one side, or yep, USB-A, it also has a power inlet. So it's like a power injector if you're familiar with PoE. So you'll attach the power there and attach it to the laptop. It's for power and data. And then it's got that interesting multi-pin connector I mentioned earlier, 5-pin on there. And this, just seeing, does not look like this connector is like removable. It's fixed there. And then we have a tiny little tripod. Come on. Wow, I'm gonna have a bad time if I can't figure out a tripod. There we go, it's just stiff. So this tightens the ball. Yeah, that tightens the ball mount. It's very, very stiff all around. I guess better that way than it flopping around on you. So I think for the initial test anyway, I'm gonna use this. I assume that the manual is on here. So I'll see what that little hooky thing was for. But I could see this, you know, you could suspend it that way. I wouldn't suspend it non-rigidly myself. It almost looked like a key ring kind of thing. Anyway, so that's really it in the package. It is a very nice, maybe I'll lift this up so you can see. It's a very nice molded package. I mean, everything has a perfect place. It's very well protected. This is all like soft, like almost like a velvety lined molded case. So that's actually really quite nice. I know it's just a case, but it's really nice, you know, buying a tool and not having a secure place to put it, and then having to buy, you know, a Pelican case or something to make sure you keep your investment safe is, well, at least initially, one less thing you have to worry about, right? So that's what we have as far as unboxing goes. I have no idea how to use this. So this video is going to be largely a first impressions. I'm gonna take this home for about a week or so and play with it. And I mentioned earlier that, you know, they gave us this statue, which is like a soft kind of clay matte finish on it. But glossy surfaces can be tricky to scan because of the way the light just reflects off of it. And so I'll also be testing out these aerosols that we have from a partner of ours. Two of them vanish after a period of time, 24 hours or 4 hours. So kind of like a quick and a slow acting vanishing spray. And then the other one is like a permanent spray that pigments the surface. So I'm not gonna use the permanent one for sure, but I think at home, aside from this, I'm gonna find some sort of functional item that's broken, maybe a piece off of one of my tools or a shroud or something, and try to scan it and replicate that part. Most of those things, they're shiny plastic or aluminum, and so that would be a good use case for those sprays. I'll try it both without the spray, and then if I'm running into problems, I'll use the spray and be able to compare and contrast the outputs from those different scans. So leave that with me, but in your view, I'll be back in just a second. So I've connected the scanner to my laptop using that barrel plug on this side, and then the power adapter plugs into the barrel plug on that side, and then the USB goes into your computer. For the turntable, the USB just gets plugged into like a standard cell phone charger, or another USB port on your laptop would work well as well. So there is a fan on the projector that kind of keeps the insides cool, and then the turntable makes a little bit of noise. The manual says to keep these about 12 inches apart, give or take. I think 12 inches is the max. And you'll see how that kind of translates to on screen. We're using the table mode, as it's called right now. I find that, especially for items like this is the best way to scan them. If you're scanning a person, obviously you're not gonna sit me on that turntable, but me in a chair like this would be pretty good. Have someone either walk around or have them hold the camera stationary and just spin me slowly. With all that said, let's take a look at the software installed. So this is an alpha version of the software. I should mention that up front, but it does have an installer now. So we'll just hit install now. All right, so after a little delay there, we're installed. We'll hit start. Ooh, available updates. Yeah, let's do that. You know what? I'm not going to do any of this stuff yet. I'm just going to go upgrade. And then we wait. Okay, a little while later, it's done downloading. It says the program is running. Is it closed immediately and the replacement is upgraded? Okay, so I'm just going to close this and then say replace. Perfect. Complete. Okay, it's relaunching. So we notice the lights on the scanner kind of flicker when it's initialized there, and those lights would be used in the texture mode. So I understand that upon official release, you'll be able to download the calibration file for your scanner based on the serial number through the network, but we're going to have to manually import that. So we'll hit next, and it's asking us for the calibration file. So we were given this calibration file on an SD card with this unit, so I'm going to load that calibration file and hit import. Good. The software will restart. And so with that calibration file, that's the information that the software needs to know how to interpret the data coming from this particular unit to the software, to the PC. Since we are using the turntable, we're in table mode. Hand scan is the handheld mode that I mentioned earlier. So let's choose table mode. And yeah, we're gonna save everything to there, that's fine. We're scanning a white object, and the documentation says to use the lowest brightness possible to get a good image for your object. So a white object would use very low light. A darker object or black, you'd use probably 3 or 4 depending. You'll see how this looks in the preview. So we'll start with the lowest as recommended, and we're gonna do a high frame rate, and we're doing geometry. So with this particular item, we're not too concerned about the texture. We're not trying to capture the texture of the item. We're just trying to capture like the dimensions, the geometry of it. Let's hit preview. And with any luck, here we go. We see the turntable. So this is where I can, reposition the crosshair, try to get it, right on the center, somewhere around there might be good. Oops. There we go. Okay. And now, I am just about 1 foot away, give or take, and you'll see that as I increase the brightness, I'll be able to get further range on the scanner. Look at that, there we go. So it was barely enough to reach here, and now that looks perfect. If we go too high, you'll end up almost getting reflections off of the surface itself, even though it is a matte plastic surface. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the preview. And so now we're gonna do the initial scan, and this scan is going to learn where the base is. So this is the base that is not part of the object, in this case, the turntable. But you could be doing this on a stationary base like a table surface, and it would try to discover what that base is. So red is the area that's going to be removed from our final scan. We'll hit stop. And now I'm going to place the figure here on its side in this case. So he's laying down. And then let's hit scan. So as it rotates around, you'll see all those little pixels get filled in. Obviously, it's not going to be able to scan the area between the head, like the face, and the base. We will do another scan after this, and we'll put them in a different orientation so that we can capture some of those surfaces that we're missing on our first scan. I believe it does about 300 frames, give or take. It'll automatically stop on its own. There we go, 317 or 323. Now it's processing, and this will create one kind of capture set, right? And that capture set is composed of a bunch of individual frames. So we can, rotate this around and see, obviously, the part between the bed and the face there is missing, but the backside here looks pretty good. Missing a little bit along the ear, but as I said, after a couple more orientations, we'll be able to make a full object out of this. So here's the capture set, scan 1, and you can toggle it visible or not. If you double click that, it expands it to the individual frames. So as I scroll through these, you can kind of visualize it rotating around, right? And so if you had a frame that turned out really bad, or you had your hand in one of them as you were positioning it, you can delete those individual frames here, or go back to this. And like I said, red indicates the area that would be removed when it tries to remove the unwanted base from our final product. So we're gonna append, so we're gonna add another scan set to this. I'm just going to rotate him 180 degrees, so it is face up, still in the center there. Make sure it's stationary and not rocking. And so let's hit append and scan. It wants us to save the project first, so I will call this head scan. Yes, I know it's a bust, it's not a head. Okay, so here's our second scan set. And the purpose of flipping them over is now we're capturing all of those face details that we didn't get in our original our original scan set. Okay, another 320 frames or so. Okay, so with those two scans done, just going to unplug the turntable there. We're going to try to combine the two of these to make one solid object. You can perform multiple scan sets. It gets more complicated to automatically align them so that they're superimposed perfectly on each other as you go, into the 3, 4, 5 scan sets. But I think we have enough detail here to reconstruct this. With the traditional scanner or one you might have used before, if you're missing any of these gaps, you're kind of responsible for fixing them and filling them and making this watertight. But this software is going to do a little bit of magic for us. So we'll hit process. Okay, we're going to process both scans. It's going to auto align them, so that's where it's going to superimpose the two on top of each other. We're going to fill any holes that are existing after that alignment. There we go. So it's essentially asking us, is this a good alignment or do we need to manually align? And if we rotate this around, you can see that the two figures are superimposed on each other. Obviously, we flipped them almost 180 degrees, so you can see that the bases are, perpendicular to one another, or sorry, parallel to one another, but 180 degrees rotated, give or take. That looks fine. And the red is all going to be removed, as I mentioned a few times. So this is qualified, I'll say this is good. And now all these magical steps are gonna happen. We should be left with a model that represents accurately what we have on the table there. If we move this window out of the way here, we can kind of see the result of each of these steps as it progresses. After the magic's done, look at that, beautiful. So I'm just gonna hit exit because I want to take a look. It's interesting that as you're rotating it, it kind of goes back to dot mode, if that makes sense. So it kind of makes it a little disorienting to use here. But that looks pretty good. The eyes, it definitely lost a bunch of the detail around the eyes here. And generally everything is a little bit smooth. I could probably do with a third scan to capture a little bit more of that detail from another perspective, another vantage point. So why don't we do that? So this is the fusion here. So I'm going to, you can toggle it on and off. I'm going to actually delete this. There we go. So we're back to our two scans, and we're going to perform a third scan here. We're going to do an append, and I'm going to do it upright, standing on its bases as you would expect it to be presented. And so this gives us a considerably different angle to scan it at. And so I will hit append. Now it is going to be taller, so I'm not sure if I'm going to capture it all in frame. I might need to gently adjust the camera upwards. So let's try this. Okay, that's about as good as I'm going to get, I think. I will do another one and try to scan more of the top of the head. Okay, so there's that, missing the top of the head, but we've got the base. And I'll do append again. And then hit scan. might not be able to do it. So maybe we'll try lowering the tripod to get more of a side-on angle so we can capture the top of the head. I want to keep the base in frame because that's a good point of reference for it to help with the automatic alignment of the scans. See, in this case, because I moved it, it's miscalculated what the base that's to be removed is. In this case, we can actually go into edit mode here, and we should be able to, let's clear the selection. And then we want to do a basement selection. So we'll select by holding Control and drag our mouse. This is an example of an area that is the base. Here. This whole thing here is the base. So clear. Oh, there we go. Okay. Let's try again. Clear. Okay. Clear. Okay. So we hit clear selection, which clears the misidentified base. And now I'm going to go to the basement selection, which exposes these here. And if I hit calculate base, it's going to say I need to pick the cells first. So holding Control and then selecting an area with your mouse, holding down the left mouse button, let go. So with this area here as an example, we'll hit calculate base, and then let's see if it's done a much better job. I planned on cutting the bottom of the object off anyway to make a good foundation, so that's fine, that doesn't concern me much. And we're still missing part of the top of the head. So let's do one more scan. We can close this. Back here, we're going to append again. Before we hit append, I'm just going to lower the tripod and do more of a head-on. So in this particular one, there is no base at all. So if I go here and clear the selection, there. Even those eyes already look a lot better from this perspective. Okay, and maybe one more. We'll do this with the tripod all the way up, a little closer, and kind of top down right on the top of the head. Okay, so let's just abort that one. Delete. And try again. So one thing that might be helpful is to do a preview before you do your next append to make sure you have the camera, oriented appropriately. So I'm going to hit append to do another scan set, and I can actually go back here to the preview and see if I've got the base in view like that, and maybe I'll lay him on his side in a third orientation like this. That looks pretty good. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, so stop. And now we're gonna do initial. This is where it's gonna learn where the base is again. So pull the figure off, let it scan the base. There we go. Just fix that centering a little bit. Okay. And then stop. And then we'll actually do the append scan here. This is good, we're getting the whole top of the head there. And this should be another perspective of the eyes and eyebrows. Okay. And it's correctly identified the base. So now we have this one. I have to load to reload these other ones. So I think you hit somewhere, right click, yeah, load scans. Got both of these loaded. Let's load this one. That one should be fine. I'm just seeing if any of them have like anomalies in them that don't look correct. Like if it was a if I bumped the camera or anything during the scan. See, this one here doesn't have a base, and because we captured this in other scans with the base, I'm actually not going to use this one at all. We'll just delete this one. And this was our first one. There. Okay, so let's hit process. Oh, we want to process all of these, not just this one. Let's process these. Why is this not working? We need them all to be visible, I think. Yes, they all have to be visible. So we're going to do the auto alignment, fill holes, and process. take a look and see how it's done. It's done fairly well. One of these has a bit of weirdness there. See which one of that one. There, that one. This one is not aligned correctly. You can see this piece here needs to be rotated more. So we could correct the alignment manually, or we can try to proceed with what we have here. We do have 3 separate scans, so we'll try with just these 3. And process. Okay, so yes, the alignment looks good. All right, so that processing is done. I'm just gonna hit exit here. And now we can see the eyes have a little bit more detail. There's still a little bit of weirdness maybe with this eye here. Being on a laptop makes it difficult for me to zoom in. I'm just comparing it to the eyes on the model. And the ear. Yeah, that looks pretty accurate. I would say that there's definitely some smoothing, if anything, on some of the facial features. And also maybe a little bit on the hair. So maybe I should do more than the 3 scans that I include, but we'll try this as a starting point anyway. So now I can just export this out of the software here, File, Export, and then I can export this as OBJ or as STL. So I'll save this as head. We'll do head 1, and I'll save it actually in both formats. So I mentioned how I was going to cut the bottom of the base off anyway to make it flat. So if this scans in with any kind of non-flat surface, you're going to have a bad time. I'm in Super Slicer, but you can do this in any slicer. In certain slicers like Cura, you can just lower the object in the Z direction below the bed, and it will automatically kind of cut it. And here we're gonna cut it ourselves. So I need to orient this in such a way that it is at least upright. So you can place on face and choose face. There we go. There are similar tools in Cura as well. And then, if I'm gonna print this in maybe ABS, that's warpy, maybe I specifically don't want this kind of curved bottom to the base, or maybe that's not a perfectly flat surface. So I'm going to cut it. I'm gonna use the tool here that's cut, and it says, how many millimeters up in the Z do you want to cut it? If I zoom out, you can see it's going to cut it here. Obviously that's 60 millimeters high. Let's just do it like 3. It's going to cut just the curved portion off the bottom there, making a nice flat surface. That should be fine. I'm not going to keep the lower part, I'm just going to keep the upper. And perform cut. And immediately it plops it back down on the bed with a nice, perfectly flat base there. This gives us the opportunity to look at it a little more closely. Let me highlight it back in green just for visibility. So So you can even see that there are little tiny dimples in the middles of the eyes where the pupils would be. And those exist on the model as well. So it picked up that tiny level of detail there. And it looks much less strange in this presentation. Not nearly as smooth as the other software made it appear. And the level of detail is actually quite good. So let's see how this prints, and we'll take a look. So that's scanning a model with tabletop mode. If we take the tripod off, we can just use it in handheld mode like this. That's where these little rubber sleeves really come in handy to keep a grip on it. So in the software, I'll just hit reset and maybe just go new project entirely. I'll save that just in case. And I don't know, maybe we'll scan my face, see how that turns out. Not that I want to print a replica. Okay, so let's preview. Oh, I forgot. We need to change from tabletop mode to handheld mode. There we go. And we're going to scan geometry still. I'm not bleach white like the model was, so maybe we'll see how 2 looks from a brightness standpoint. So it gives us a countdown here. I'm just going to increase the brightness before we, there. That countdown means like stay still. It's using that as a basis for like a point of reference. And then from there, you can just move it across. Hard to talk and scan your face at the same time because you don't want to be moving, obviously. In the top right-hand corner, you can actually see a grayscale version of what it is it's scanning. And that would have been the original point of reference, I believe. Now it did get a little bit tripped up there. It lost my position. So it lost the tracking, so I had to move back to a known area, and you could kind of see the image shift. So there's a series of frames there that I'm probably gonna want to discard because they're completely out of alignment, right? So it actually captured some of my eyeball through the lens of my glasses. You know, shiny objects are very difficult for it to capture, so where my glasses are and the frames of the glasses even, there's likely going to be voids. And that's where that spray comes in. I'm not going to spray my face and my glasses, but you can even see it picked up some of the facial hair. And we do have studio lights in here, so there's a lot more, you know, glare off my greasy skin than normal. So that definitely is a difficult thing for it to scan. Maybe let's find a more matte object to do a handheld scan with. So we've turned down the lights. We've taken the studio lights off, so we're just in a regular like office lighting situation. The documentation does say, you know, make sure the lighting is not too bright, not too dim, you know, Goldilocks, just right. So I wanted to scan something else freehand, and I figured, why not scan my hand? So we'll see what level of detail it picks up. You know, wrinkles along the knuckles, the ring. The ring is shiny, so I suspect that that's going to be a void. I could spray it with that spray and scan it that way, but for the purposes of this demonstration, you know what, maybe I'll just take it completely off. All right, so I'm gonna lay my hand down flat, and using my other hand, I'm gonna keep about 10 to 12 inches away and scan it. And then we'll flip it over, we'll scan it a second time, and we'll see if we can combine those two into a three-dimensional hand. As far as like how white or dark the object is, I'm not sure if the lighting should be at 2 or 3. I'll just leave it at 2 for this. Scan. There we go. Start right at the thumb. Okay, so I'll just slowly make my way around. It is kind of tricky doing it only with one hand because normally I'd use my other hand to hold the cable so it doesn't get snagged on anything. It's kind of getting caught a little bit on the edge of the table. Just try to get another angle to get underneath the fingers. Oh, you got lost there. That's okay. That's good. Let's stop that. And so those last few frames are obviously just garbage as I was moving around, so we'll cut those last few frames out. Now when you're hand scanning, you're using a lot more frames than the tabletop scan. So each scan was about 320 frames. That right there was just shy of 500. One of the other tests that I did that we cut from the video here was like 1,200 frames. It does an extremely good job of like fabrics, but you kind of lose track of how much you've scanned at once, and it can take a decent amount of time to process through that for sure. So there's my hand, at least the top of it. That's kind of cool. So now we need to tell it where the base is. So let's go back to our edit, and I'm going to hold Control and kind of choose this region, and then say basement selection, calculate base. Oh, I've got to repick the cells, sorry. Did it in the wrong order. Okay, so that's an example. There we go. Calculate base. There we go. So it's going to remove all that, that's good. Let's go back here and do another scan. So this should add a second scan. It doesn't say append anymore, it just says scan. So let's see, hand. I'm hoping it's just appending to the scans on the right-hand side there. Same thing, 10 to 12 inches away. Try to get it from all the different angles. Fill in any of the blanks as you go around. Oh. I might have moved my thumb. My thumb's a little bit mangled. It's getting confused. It doesn't seem to like when I change the angles like that. I've got like 10 fingers in that one. I wonder if I should stay at a consistent angle and just make my way around the hand. All right, so I'm gonna hit scan one more time. It is appending these scans. You can see the kind of the defects there. Now, some of this is definitely usable. So if we expand this, we can go through the individual frames and see where the bad frames are. So this all looks fine up until somewhere around the thumb there. Things get shifted. So maybe let's just take right up to and including the thumb. right up to there. So I'll purge everything after this. Oh, that is quite a lot of detail. There. You can actually see there, you can see some of those extra fingers. They came in right near the end here. So somewhere from 382 right here. So 354 from here. There's the extra fingers, there's that. Let's get rid of all of these are bad. Okay, let's look at these. So that's just the last little bit there. So you know what, I'm gonna get rid of those too. Okay, let's see what that looks like. There, that looks better. And so let's see what'll happen if I try to just combine those two perspectives, if that's enough detail. All right, so we've got the two scans. We're gonna do the align mode auto. Oh, that's what I forgot to do. I forgot to identify where the base is on the second one here. So let's go edit, and we're gonna do basement selection, control and drag. Grab some example pixels. I wonder if that's enough. Yep. Yep, that looks good. Okay, so now we have these two. Let's see. Process. So we've already got the ground on this one. I'm gonna hit next. And it did not align them. So we're going to do another hand scan. Now I could do this on the turntable. I'm going to do it just by hand. This is a really matte object, so I don't have to worry about the lighting too much. If there is any kind of gloss, like if I was to scan my face again, it might be best if I turn down the studio lights to limit that kind of reflection, but it's not going to be a problem for this guy. So let's go scan, and then I need to place it on give it like a point of reference. And then I'm going to keep it, 10 to 12 inches away, and I'm holding the cable with the other hand just to make sure it doesn't get snagged on the table or anything. Now I'm going to rotate around like this. I find that it gets a little bit tripped up if you change the orientation of the scanner. So if I tipped the scanner like 180 degrees, so it's, if I reach it around, for example, it gets a little bit lost. No, that's not working either. So that was our first look and hands-on use of the Creality Scan Lizard, otherwise known as the model CRSL right now. As I mentioned, this is still in kind of a beta mode, but you can see that it was able to produce a viable, reprintable version of this at a striking level of detail. I'll still have to play with it a little bit more to scan human figures, specifically faces, and capture hair. And then the texture mode, where it actually uses the visible LEDs on the front there to capture the texture of the objects, to be able to map that on top of them. So there's lots more to learn. And as you can see, it's a bit of a time-consuming process. There's a lot of processing power that goes into the software to do the alignment for you and do a lot of the repair work, but it sure beats doing that yourself. Hopefully you found all that useful. Remember, like and subscribe and ring that bell if you want to get notified when we upload more videos like this. Thanks for watching.